Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Pre-Heresy and Codices, where I look at one Space Marine Legion per ramble, give my thoughts on what Codex could best represent them in a 40k army list build, and then I talk about collecting that force a little bit. On the chopping block, this time is the Space Wolf Legion. Now, this is one of two Loyalist Legions that have a color change pre to post-Heresy, so let's get that out of the way. Post-Heresy, we know them in what I call this baby blue-gray color scheme. I don't really know what you would call that color officially, but that's what I call it. And we've seen this as them for many years. However, their pre-Heresy color scheme is different. It's, you could say a slate gray, but it's very much just a gray color, as you can see here. The nice thing about it is, it's only just a color change. They still have wolf pelts, they still have the runic symbols on their armor. They're still very much Space Wolfy for you Space Wolf fans out there. So, you can still represent that and utilize certain kits, which I'll get into later, to represent that and just paint them a little bit differently. So when it comes to a codex, the codex that I feel best works for them is probably no surprise the Space Wolf Codex. However, I have seen people utilize other Space Marine codices out there to represent a pre-Heresy Space Wolf force, and here's why. They don't want it to feel just like a palette swap they don't want it to be like, oh, this is a 40k Space Wolf list, but if I paint them up in pre-Heresy colors, then it's a pre-Heresy list. Some people don't like that. And really, though, it's gonna be that way for anything. Anything's gonna feel like a palette swap. If you make a do-it-yourself chapter, but you play it very much how Black Templars are played because you like that play style, you just don't like the Black Templars. So you're gonna use the generic Space Marine Codex with the Black Templars chapter tactics. Then you're gonna have a Black Templar feeling force, right? More often than not. So it's just the way it is. But when you're collecting a pre-Heresy force, there are certain restrictions to keep in mind. So with the Space Wolf Codex, there's no Land Raider, Crusader, or Redeemer, just like any other Space Marine force. They weren't around. So you don't have the Space Marine, Land Raider, Redeemer, or Crusader. When it comes to flyers, I don't know about the Space Wolf flyers. If it specifically states that they're ancient, and they've been around forever essentially, then it's up to you if you want to use it or not. If it's stated specifically that they have a creation date that is a post-Heresy date, then you can't use them because it's a post-Heresy thing. Now, lastly, I want to touch on Fenrisian Wolves and Thunderwolf Cavalry. No doubt, they had Fenrisian Wolves during the pre-Heresy time period. In some of the novels of the pre-Heresy books from Black Library, they even made reference to. I'm not 100% certain on the Thunderwolf Cavalry, to be honest. I have no reason why I see no reason, I should say, why they wouldn't have them. But part of the thing about being a Space Marine Legion is numbers. This is when the Space Marine forces were at their biggest. They were legions, tens of thousands strong and bigger. So, part of representing that in an army list would be taking more infantry than maybe you would be used to. So if Thunderwolf Cavalry is still popular, avoiding them would let you take a whole other squad pretty easily. It's up to you. It's just a suggestion if you want to have a bit more of a Legion feel to them, but it's not going to be obvious to everybody, and it's up to you. So with that being said, let's look at collecting a Space Wolf force. Now, there's not much to say here because the Forge World Horus Heresy book that would have the Space Wolves in them isn't out yet. I don't know when it comes out. I have no idea. But when that book comes out, we're going to have special characters and special units for the Space Wolves, which is going to equate to conversion kits and actual kits for the Space Wolves in the Horus Heresy time period. We don't have those yet. When those do come out, I'll be redoing this ramble. But for now, all I can say is this. The generic Horus Heresy stuff from Forge World in the Horus Heresy section for the Legion of Astartes will work just fine for them. The Power Armor variants, the Terminator Armor variants, those will work just fine for them. The vehicles and the dreadnoughts and all that good stuff will work just fine for them. However, if you want to go and utilize some of the GW kits, just keep these things in mind. No Mark 7 helmets. Other than that, I'm personally pretty laid back about it. But no Mark 7 helmets, and no GW Terminators because they're not the correct mark of Terminator. And really, that's it. If you're going to go with Dreadnoughts, go with the Mark IV look. And the Mark IV look is basically what this picture here is. That's the Mark IV look. So if you're going to go with a plastic GW kit, make sure it's able to produce that look and you'll be just fine. Now, other than that, you're good to go. So if you want to utilize some of GW's products, unfortunately the Wolfguard Terminator kit won't be useful. Now, keep in mind, this is to be the most simplest, basic way of doing things. That is, if the kit can't do it, you don't use it. If you're good at conversions and scratch building pieces and sculpting or plastic car building, you can utilize the Wolfguard Terminator kit, convert up the helmet, create your own cataphracti-like shoulder pads, and you're good to go. It can work. I understand that. I've seen it done. If that's not you, if you're not good at doing that, don't feel forced to do it. Just forget that kit, utilize the forge ruled stuff. But I just want to make that a point. What I'm talking about is a basic overview, the most simplest thing that any person in the hobby can do. So avoid the Wolfguard Terminator kit for that reason, unless you're good at doing those stuff. If you're going to go with the Dreadnought kit from GW, the Space Wolf Dreadnought kit is the way to go. It's Mark IV, the one with this wolf head in it, is great. If you really want to use the Murderfang option as an entry, go for it, but for me, don't make it unhelmeted. I think that's the dumbest thing. But aside from being unhelmeted, that look is correct. If you want to go Bjorn, take the Venerable Dreadnought kit, but equip it like Bjorn. And remember, that will have to be a count as, because Bjorn is still alive in flesh. Yes, he had an arm cut off at some point, but he is alive. So he would, at best, if you want to represent him, he would be a Wolf Lord, not a Dreadnought. Outside of that, the plastic Dreadnought kit, like I said, would be great for you. The plastic Space Wolf Dreadnought kit, and then the Space Wolf pack, which can make Wolfguard and Power Armor, or Blood Claws, or Grey Hunters. That kit is very nice. There really isn't any Imperial Eagle emblem sculpted in anything on there, so the only thing you wouldn't be able to utilize is the Mark 7 helmet. Everything else is going to be great to utilize. It's going to have sculpted details, it's going to have pelts, it's going to be great. Same thing for the Long Fang kit. Don't get that kit if you don't want to utilize the modern quote-unquote heavy weapons. If you want it to be more of the ancient heavy weapon style, don't get the Long Fang kit, but if you don't care, get it. There's also the Space Wolf accessory frame. Now this accessory frame is for power armor, but also has some like wolf tail talismans and stuff like that in there that can be glued to vehicles or your generic Terminator stuff from Forge Roll to help give them more of a Space Wolf feel. So those are your options as of now. The power armor stuff is going to be covered. You get some of the GW Space Wolf pack kits, and you get maybe a couple of Forge Worlds Mark II through Mark VI kits. You interchange things as you can, and you're going to have a nice looking powered armored force for you. So that's basically it for now. Like I said, once we get the Horus Heresy Forge World book that has the Space Wolves in them, and once we get the miniatures actually made by Forge World and ready to be sold, once we get those two things, I'll be redoing this ramble, because there's not much to talk about specifically for collecting Space Wolves, because we don't have much that's specific to them at the moment that works in a Pre-Heresy light. So anyways, that's it for this edition of the Pre-Heresy and Codices. Up next will be the Imperial Fist Legion. So until then, take it easy.